evening. It's often said you should never be surprised by anything in football. Well, a week into the N-Power Football League season and two clubs have already suffered management changes. Well, Steve's with me to get his head around recent events, not to mention all the goals. And if you've got something to say, get in touch with Lizzie.
Yes, text us on 81111 or send us an email to footballleague@bbc.co.uk. This is your chance to set the agenda, whatever it is. And don't forget, you can also put your questions to Steve. But don't just ask me if your team's going to get promoted, because I will not read it out. Let's try and really test him this week.
Yeah, get your messages across. Here's what's coming up tonight. At the start of the day, it was friends reunited when QPR arrived at Bramall Lane. But come 5 o'clock, attention shifted from Warnock to Blackwell. In a week, the managerial upheaval hit the headlines.
Steve Coppell's quit as manager of Bristol City 1 week into the season and having just signed David James. No prizes for guessing which team I'm following this week.
With new owners tied up at Leicester City, there was every incentive for the Foxes to impress the new bosses against Gordon Strachan's Middlesbrough, with both sides looking for the first win of the season. And there was a tasty local affair in London on Friday night. We'll bring you extended highlights of Leyton Orient against Charlton. We start in the Steel City, where Sheffield United were looking to sharpen up their act after their shock midweek defeat to Hartlepool in the Carling Cup. Standing in their way were one of the pre-season favourites, QPR, managed, of course, by former Bramall Lane favourite Neil Warnock.
Well, good old Derek, he looks pretty well there, doesn't he?
QPR manager Neil Warnock taking his time to get reacquainted with Bramall Lane, his home for 8 years. By the end of the day, though, another manager would have departed. Now, Warnock would have surely been out of his dugout early on if he'd been in charge of the Blades. Jamie Ward livid he wasn't awarded a penalty. And to add to the injustice, from the resultant breakaway, Rangers opened the scoring. The fourth pass of the move releasing Hogan Ephraim. And he had so much time, he could have probably put the kettle on before slotting home. Now, QPR's only previous league win in 11 visits to Bramall Lane was over 16 years ago. But when Ephraim then turned provider for Jamie Mackie, the result looked safe, the forward claiming his second league goal in as many games. Sheffield United were dumped out of the Carling Cup by low league opponents Hartlepool on Wednesday night, and the pressure was clearly mounting for United manager Blackwell. That only intensified when goalkeeper Steve Simonson was caught out by the fast reactions of Adel Taarabt. The Moroccan stepped up to take the ensuing spot kick. Rangers 3 up at the break. Now, Neil Warnock wasn't the only name to be making a return to his former club. Goalkeeper Paddy Kenny moved to Loftus Road in the summer when he was on top form to keep out Richard Cresswell. The frustration was to continue for the Blades, who were denied what looked like a decent penalty shout when Clint Hill brought down Ched Evans. The Welshman's protest fell on deaf ears, though. 3-0 it finished. And just after the final whistle, news emerged that Sheffield United had parted company with Kevin Blackwell by mutual consent. He becomes the second managerial casualty of the season. The search for his successor begins.
So Kevin Blackwell's 2.5-year tenure at Sheffield United comes to an end. I know there's a feeling in the camp that refereeing decisions didn't exactly help his case today. What do you make of what happened as soon as the full-time whistle went and the development started rolling in?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a strange sort of couple of years for them, because they get beat in the playoffs, yeah, and he tenders his resignation, and he's talked round. They have a topsy-turvy year last year. They start by spending an awful lot of money on Ched Evans. They bail out and sell a few people midway through the season, and then towards the end of the season they finish quite well. And this year, obviously, expectations are high. They haven't been able to get there. It doesn't surprise me. I suppose in a way it does, because it's so early yet again. But, pressure is on right from the very start.
But he has had his hands tied in the role, hasn't he? He's had 12 senior professionals out in the midweek game against Hartlepool. Yeah. That would have contributed to that defeat, no doubt. And 22 senior players on his books at the minute. That can't be easy to work with.
No, it's not. I mean, as I say, it's been a topsy-turvy ride the last couple of years, because it's been almost feast or famine. They've gone and spent money, and then all of a sudden they felt the need to get it back in. They've been, at a high number of people on their books. All of a sudden, then they've got a low number. So you don't really quite know. It's not a settled picture. There's no real structure at the club at this stage. So I'm not quite sure what direction it's going. But it's still very, very early. And as you say, there are other considerations to be taken, not just results.
We mustn't forget, I mean, this is after a great performance by Queen's Park Rangers, and
Yep.
I assume Neil Warnock won't take any pleasure out of the fact that that defeat has led to what's happened to one of his best mates in football.
Of course not. I mean, Neil Warnock will be pleased that he's gone back to one of his old stomping grounds, got a fantastic result after the midweek reverse, it has to be said, and showed that they're going to be proper contenders this season. But no, he won't. We'll take he won't be happy at all with what's happening.
Could you give me a name or two in terms of successes for that job?
No, give me 5 minutes.
All right, I'll come back to you on that then. OK, well, Kevin Blackwell's departure comes only 72 hours after Steve Coppell's surprise decision to walk out on Bristol City and retire from the game altogether. The Robins wasted little time in handing Keith Millen the reins, who kicked off his third spell away to Doncaster. Clem went along to assess the fallout.
14 years have passed without Steve Coppell ever really explaining why he left Manchester City after just 33 days in charge, so we may never know about his abrupt departure from Ashton Gate after less than 4 months. Please, can you make the face you made when you heard Steve Coppell had gone?
I was absolutely shocked. I got the text alert and I spent sort of 5 minutes just looking at my phone, and I rang him up and he was at work and he couldn't believe it either.
Just that feeling like a member of family's died or something, just incredible, couldn't believe it.
The story is, I mean, that Steve phoned me on the Wednesday morning after the Southend game. He asked me how I was, and I said, well, disappointed, I'm sure you are as well, and I thought we were going to talk about the game and what we need to do about players, and he just said that he thought he had to call it a day.
If it's for personal reasons, which is what they're saying, then that's fair enough. Obviously people's personal life is more important, but it is you do feel a little bit let down.
Personally, I'd like to thank him for leaving so early, because if he had left about 5 months later, we could have been a complete rattle and we could have been near the bottom of the league. Whilst if he leaves now, we've still got a chance of the playoffs and we can still push up.
He didn't feel he had the passion for the game. He felt that there were things he should have been doing the night before with the players and having words with them, but he just couldn't bring himself to do that, and he realised then that it wasn't going as he wanted it to do.
I don't think we'll ever know the true story of what's happened behind the scenes and that, but I think it's just important as a club we push on, get behind the lads and help get towards the top of the table.
As for Keith Millen, he finished his playing career at Ashton Gate. He's been assistant manager for the last 6 years and caretaker twice.
He received the news from Coppell himself in a pub on Wednesday night.
I didn't have a pint in the end, we was having a coffee, but it was, I nearly dropped my coffee cup, I must admit. But we've got to move on, you have to move on in football. Thursday was a day of shock for the players, but then Friday we come in and we've been focused towards today's game.
And everything comes to he who waits.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true, yeah, third time lucky. No, I was confident.
Ready for it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Millen's men were under pressure early on. Rovers' George Friend denied by the post, and then David James, as Donny enjoyed the better of the early exchanges. Midfielder Ryan Mason was making his debut after signing on loan from Tottenham. He picked his spot, the execution good, just not quite good enough. Doncaster did the double over City last season, but after the break, it was the visitors who broke the deadlock, marking a little suspect as Damien Stewart stole in at the far post for his team's first goal in the league this campaign. And that's the way it looked like it would stay until the last minute of the match, when James Coppinger got into a threatening position, Jamie McAllister getting his timing all wrong with the challenge. Penalty. Billy Sharp scored 16 goals on loan at Donny last season. He kept his cool to score his first as a permanent signing. 1-1 it finished.
Bit gutting you couldn't hang on for that extra 5 minutes.
And it was unbelievable. It was. I couldn't see him scoring second half. I thought we were disciplined in our shape, made it difficult for him. And unfortunately, we've gone to ground and given him a soft chance to score a goal.
You looked absolutely gutted to concede that late equaliser. Gutted. Shot the ball over the top of the stand.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I did. 3 points there, wasn't there? A little bit frustrating, especially when there's only, I think it was last minute of the game, wasn't it? So, yeah,
We want to improve from last year, and if we do that, we'll obviously get closer to the playoffs. But you know, we haven't played that well today. But we've got a point, so we're delighted with that. But we need to play a lot better if we're going to win a lot of games here.
The events of this week. What are your thoughts on what's happened?
Good win for England. Good performance by Joe Hart. Followed in by another one today, apparently. So England goalkeeping positions in good hands, dare I say. As far as our club's concerned, well, just another interesting tale in football.
Yeah, maybe not the events that Clem was talking about. So Steve Coppell goes after just 2 league games. And obviously it's going to, well, I suppose, resurrect memories of when Steve Coppell was at Manchester City. But he says the fire in his belly had gone for the game. And if that's, I suppose, the reason, we should stop looking for other reasons altogether. Yeah, I mean, it never came across. I mean, most people who deal with in football need the game more than anything. It's like a drug to them. I think Steve Coppell's one of the few people involved in football who I think has actually got it in perspective. And you know, if he feels that it's just not gripping him anymore, his enthusiasm's obviously gone, then it's the right decision for him to get out. Because if he doesn't, that will only that will affect everybody around him. And he will sap the life out of people if his enthusiasm for the game isn't there. It was seen as a surprise appointment. I suppose you can't almost afford to take a job in management half-heartedly, can you? No, I mean he's actually said that's it now. No more management for me. He's retired, and that says
he's retired
from
football management. I don't think it was a surprise. I thought it was at the time it was an appointment that made sense because apart from probably one iffy year with Reading, I mean it had been a success story all the way for him, at various levels. So it was a tried and tested formula, just the wrong man at the wrong time.
Bristol City were tipped to do fairly well under Steve Coppell.
Yeah,
do you reassess your view as to how they do well now?
Not really. I mean, they had a decent run under Keith Millen when he took it from Gary Johnson last year, and they've got an awful lot of injuries that have still got some big players. Nicky Maynard to main, but one to come back in. So no, I wouldn't. I think it's far too early to write them off. They've still got an awful lot to offer.
And haven't forgotten those 2 successors, if any, for Kevin Blackwell.
Yeah, you've got to be careful here because there'll be 1 or 2 in. I'm going to upset a few. I'm not going to say anybody who's got a job. Right, there will be 1 or 2 that you'd like to put forward. Probably the obvious one is going to be Gary Speed, and who's in situ, and when you're in situ, that is obviously an advantage.
Yeah, sure. OK. Now, 2 clubs tipped for promotion flexed their muscles at the Walker Stadium on Saturday. Leicester City, who are now under new ownership after they were bought out by a 25-year-old Thai businessman, face Middlesbrough, with both sides looking to register their first wins of the season. Here's Dan O'Hagan.
New season, new manager, and this week, in the shape of Ayawat Raksriaksorn, new owners. A summer of change at Leicester, aiming to improve on their playoff semi-final place in the last campaign. And what of summer shopaholics Middlesbrough? No club in the division has spent more close season. Arguably, no club's fans at this level expect more. Both these teams played one, lost one in the league. First points are up for grabs. Carling Cup wins for both in midweek. Leicester beat League Two Macclesfield here by the odd goal in 7. Today, Chris Wheel returns in goal. Portuguese Moreno makes a league debut at centre-back, with Steve Howard preferred to Matt Fryatt as the main striker. Support comes from wide from Lloyd Dyer and DJ Campbell. The new Dutch right-back Michael LeMay is on the bench. There's no Brad Jones in goal for Borough, as he's close to a move to Liverpool. Step forward, Jason Steele. At 19, a Middlesbrough League debut, preferred to Danny Coyne. Matthew Bates plays out of position at left-back. Chris Boyd and Scott McDonald, proven in the SPL. Can they fire the goals in for many people's promotion favourites south of the border? Wheel towards the head of Howard, on to Lloyd Dyer here, Campbell with him. This is DJ Campbell, deflection, which takes the ball over the top. Leicester's first sight of goal, and DJ Campbell given a new lease of life here with Paulo Sousa in charge now. There's the first to look likely for Leicester. In goes that corner. Oh, and the header off the crossbar, with Steele beaten, sent back in by Wellens, but behind for another corner. And Leicester go mighty close here. But Manish here has set Boyd away. There's no flag. Chris Boyd is denied by, once again, Jack Hobbs. who has had a very strong start here, the former Liverpool junior. Robson's corner. It's a deep one, too deep, and Andy King turns it away. He'll be sent back in there by Bailey here for Barry Robson. Goalkeeper Wheeler's got a fist on the ball, and Wheater's header over the top. Wheels flap, and Wheater's off-balance header is maybe Borough's best chance so far. Now it's Nicky Bailey for Middlesbrough. Bailey's ball in, it's turned away by Nielsen, comes back out here to Justin Hoyt. Robson, that's a lovely ball. Bailey first time, not so lovely. Robson and Luke Williams. Williams keeps his footing here. Luke Williams, oh, just wide, but what a run from Luke Williams. He is full of self-belief. Away from 2 challenges and a third, and the shot just wide. Bates then wrestles down Lloyd Dyer. That is going to be a Leicester free kick, to the ironic jeers of most inside the Walker Stadium. It's going to be DJ Campbell's free kick, and a super save from Borough's rookie goalkeeper Jason Steele. Campbell here with a great connection, and look at that, 19 years of age on his Middlesbrough League debut. Campbell, what a first half he's had so far. DJ Campbell here to Andy King, flags up, won't count. Andy King is denied the opening goal by the flag of Dave Richardson. Once again, the DJ Campbell was the man here to pull the strings for Leicester. Always level, isn't he? Ross McManus there playing him on a wonder. This is Nicky Bailey. Looking for Scott McDonald, who is shrugged aside unfairly by Moreno. Moreno has given this one away. Just a nudge there on Scott McDonald. It's O'Neill's ball in towards the near post. Wheel half away. Robson's in there. The whistle's gone. O'Neill's ball in here, and the goalkeeper down to make the block, and then Robson here with the nudge on Moreno. Hence why the play was called back. Keeping tabs, Simon Grayson, the Leeds boss and former Leicester player. Leeds face Leicester in round 2 of the Carling Cup later this month. Dyer. Hoyt's mistake, it's Lloyd Dyer's cross, it's DJ Campbell's header, which should have been a goal. Oh, Leicester's best second half opening, and it came to their most dangerous player, DJ Campbell, and he couldn't score here for the second league game in succession. Howard, clever touch for Andy King, for Steve Howard! Oh, fingertips from Jason Steele this time. Howard, not known for finesse, almost steers away past the new Borough goalkeeper. McDonald skips away from Richie Wellens. McDonald's cross for Chris Boyd. Nielsen clear. O'Neill back in! Well, Gary O'Neill with a shot which is mighty close to a spectacular opener here for Middlesbrough. Robson. Robson for Scott McDonald. McDonald goes for goal, and Wheel down to block it. And there is a flag here for the foul on Gallagher, but a fairly rare save here for Chris Wheel, the Leicester goalkeeper. Here goes Bruno Berner, found by Fryatt. That's Bates. Bates with Fryatt very close to him. Matthew Bates still giving the ball away here to Wellens, could be costly. Wellens, now Bruno Berner. Berner, and there is a vital block from Nicky Bailey. Leicester sense There might be a late winner in the offing here. In by Gallagher, and LeMay's in there, and it's hooked away. McManus in the right place to clear there for Middlesbrough, as Michael LeMay, the new player, almost got in for Leicester.
We're training very hard this week, and good enough to understand today. Also defensively, our defensive organisation is becoming better, more aggressive, all better organised, better decisions, and he helps us, of course, to dominate better our opponent.
Gordon, honours even a scoreless draw. Your thoughts on the overall team performance today?
Well, after last week, we had again we got a good result, a cup tie away during the week, so we won that, and we've come to Leicester, who are a good side, and we got a draw, and we didn't. We're not passing the ball as well as we like at the moment, that's for sure. But we're working hard. And we need to keep plugging away till we get the flow of the game right, and give Chris and Scotty more opportunities at goals.
The new owners were here today. What have they said to you about their plans for how they want to take the club forward?
They guarantee to me it's to have full support. Of course, I don't know it yet what kind of budget I have to reinforce and to add extra men to our squad. But of course, they will support me. This is what they said, and I believe, of course, in that. And we go to work together for a plan, short and medium term.
Yeah, interesting times at Leicester City. 0-0 about the right result for you, Steve?
Just about. Probably if you had to give it to anyone, it would have been Leicester on points. But no, Middlesbrough, as Gordon said, dug in, so they probably deserve something out of it.
Do you think Leicester were a bit unlucky not to have scored in that game?
Yes, definitely. I think see Andy King, to me, he's timed his run perfectly. If you have a look at it, as the ball's released there, he's just onside. And it's a perfect finish, perfectly weighted ball from DJ Campbell, and it's a good finish. And that, for me, is a legitimate goal.
He's had a good week, Andy King. I mean, if that gone in, it would have capped a great week, having scored for his first goal for Wales. You rate him, don't you?
I do. He's a type of very versatile player. He can sit and hold for you in midfield, or as you say, he can get forward and he'll get you goals. So he's the type of player who can play almost a dual role. As
for Middlesbrough, according to all reports, it looks like Brad Jones, their goalkeeper, will go to Liverpool. Yeah. So Jason Steele was given his chance in goal today. He certainly didn't let his side down, did he?
No, he did everything that was asked of him. As you say, I mean, all these saves are a respectable height that you would expect him to deal with, but Steele positioning's good. Strong wrists, and he makes sure that he whatever happens, wherever the ball finishes up after the save, which is important, it's in a safe area.
I know Jason also played well in the midweek cup win against Chesterfield. So we've seen what Middlesbrough and the heightened expectation of having money for Gordon Strachan has done. Do you think now with this tie ownership at your old club Leicester, is that going to raise expectations now on Paulo Sousa?
Well, I think expectations would have been reasonably high anyway. I mean, after last year's finish. Anything less than that, it's seen as a failure, which is wrong, because I thought Nigel Pearson got just about as much as he could out of that squad. They would need reinforcements. They'll need new players to come in just to take them to the next level and have more, obviously more options to pick from. But no, if there's new investment and new owners, they're obviously going to be enthusiastic about that.
Yeah.
New money coming into the club can only be good for the future.
He certainly looks young for a football club owner, doesn't he?
He looks a lot younger than me and you, right?
Not older than 25, that's for sure. Now, Portsmouth fans could have been forgiven for thinking that they wouldn't have even got a chance to see their beloved Pompey in action this season. But after a summer of turmoil, they were able to head along to Fratton Park for the first home game of the season.
The last time this fixture was played, it was a Premier League match and there were 11 goals. That time, Portsmouth ran out 7-4 winners, and it took the home side less than 8 minutes to take the lead in this one. Matt Ritchie with the cheeky bit of skill, Dutch teenager Nadir Siptsi with the goal on his first league start for the club. Now, Gylfi Sigurdsson's threat from free kicks is hardly a secret. Doesn't make it any easier to stop them, though. Pompey thankful to still be ahead after the break. Now, this clearly wasn't going to be a repeat of that classic 3 years ago. The proof, David Nugent failing to double the lead. And then second half sub Michail Antonio's efforts from Jimmy Kebe's cross. The verdict, should have done better. But if you put Portsmouth under enough pressure, they can be brittle. Brynjar Gunnarsson with real persistence. Kebe with the final touch to salvage a point for Reading.
After a 4-year absence, Championship football has returned to the Den, and after a memorable opening day win at Bristol City, Millwall's next opponents were Premier League casualties Hull. Full of confidence after that shock result on opening day, Millwall were off to the best possible start. Steve Morison was playing conference football just over a year ago, but took no time at all to adjust to life in the Championship. It's always hard for an ex-Charlton man to endear himself to the Millwall fans, but a goal on your home debut's a good place to start. Kevin Lisby with the second inside the half hour, again thanks to a James Henry cross. Hull manager Nigel Pearson had used all 3 substitutes by the start of the second half. His frustrations were fuelled further by a third Millwall goal. Steve Morison made his debut for Wales on Wednesday night, a dream week getting better and better. And it only got worse for the away side when Liam Trotter added a 4th. James Henry with his 4th pinpoint delivery of the afternoon. Millwall in dreamland, and you can see how Hull have failed to win away from home since March 2009. With so little to be cheerful about, it's worth highlighting the performance of second-half substitute and new signing Robert Koren. Slovenia's World Cup captain had the best chance to grab a consolation. He'll hope for better times to come. So after 4 years in League One, the Lions' first Championship game at the Den proved well worth the wait.
Two former Nottingham Forest teammates faced off at Portman Road, with Brian Laws and Roy Keane both looking to build on impressive opening day wins. It was the away side that could have taken the lead early on. When Ross Wallace set up Wade Elliott, he looked destined to score, but if you watch closely, Martin Phillip uses his head to keep the ball out. Unorthodox, but it will do. Keane handed a start to Tottenham loan signing Andros Townsend, and the youngster was one of Ipswich's outstanding performers, creating this chance for Jonathan Stead after the Burnley defender's comical attempts to clear. The game looked to have turned in the second half after David Edgar crudely stopped an Ipswich break. Edgar knew what was coming as he'd already been booked. Burnley were forced to play the final 10 minutes with 10 men. Ipswich made that numerical advantage count with 4 minutes to go. Burnley a touch soft to the back here. David Norris with a nice bit of improvisation. The hosts on course for all 3 points and their best start to a league campaign in 8 years. But there was more drama to follow when in stoppage time Graham Alexander's corner was somehow turned in by Clark Carlisle to steal a point for Brian Law's side. A result then that Keane refused to blame on the ongoing situation with Jonathan Walters.
Obviously the distraction of John Walters as well. Has that been a distraction?
No, absolutely none whatsoever. Why would that be a distraction? I find that all very, very strange.
Well, it's funny because I was writing in my report that it was almost like a vindication, because there goes David Norris, your new captain, and he goes and scores. And
yeah, and obviously that's long may it continue.
Come on, you Bluebirds!
There's been too much negativity about Cardiff, according to striker Michael Chopra, and the team want to prove the doubters wrong. Well, the club survived a winding-up order during the week, and it was Chopra who lifted spirits early on with a cool finish past Stephen Bywater. The Rams' winning start at Leeds last weekend was followed by a disappointing Carling Cup exit to Crewe. Thankfully, it was a league form on show on 25 minutes. Thomas Shivka the quickest to react, his first goal for the club. Peter Whittingham's goals helped propel Cardiff into the playoff final last season, but he's yet to find his range so far this campaign. But with 12 minutes to play, the man who scored 25 goals from midfield last season made a telling contribution. Stephen Bywater spilled his daisy cutter, Chris Burke on hand for the simplest of finishes. Cardiff were involved in the only draw on the first weekend of the Championship season. They somehow managed to avoid a second one thanks to a double save from David Marshall and some committed defending. 2-1 it finished.
Yeah, and a nice early birthday present for Dave Jones. As for Millwall, they keep defying the odds here, don't they? I mean, talk about wanting to make the Den a fortress in this division, and they've certainly gone about doing it today.
Yeah, I think they're unbeaten in, 14, 15, 16 games, apparently. Yeah. That's a tough place to go to. If that's rocking, if there's 14 or 15,000 people there, it'll sound like an awful lot more. They really do get behind them. Extremely passionate, and they're on a roll. And there aren't too many teams that are going to enjoy going there at this stage.
What a great few days for Steve Morison. Obviously on target for Wales, and twice more today for Millwall.
Yeah, just bullies Anthony Gardner here. I mean, too strong. You know, Gardner's complaining that he's been pulled around, but he's got to stand up and be counted there. And yet again, it's a good header at the far post. strong. And to be fair, I mean, there were questions raised about him when he first went to Millwall, didn't get in, a few injuries, got his chance, and he's been fantastic. And obviously he hasn't played at this level before. You're always thinking, can he make the transition? Can he make the step up well?
Yeah,
I think he's answering us emphatically so far.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, he's going to get the headlines along with Kevin Lisby. It's looking like a good partnership. But James Henry's coming from Reading.
Yep.
He set up all 4 goals today. He looks like a good acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, James Henry went out on loan to a couple of clubs. I think he went to Bournemouth and also to Millwall, obviously. And you got the feeling it was about time that he actually put some roots down and started to get a first-team place and start playing regularly, because he's got undoubted talent. But it's just, at times, you might have questioned just his application, his attitude, but it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with it now. No. And I think the environment he's in will allow him to flourish. And if you do that, you've got a good player. I tell you what, that furrowed brow's returned as far as Roy Keane's concerned, isn't it? With the post-match interviews. His team conceded late on against Burnley. Now, this is something that blighted Ipswich last season, wasn't it? He'll no doubt be very, very disappointed about that. It's just a really lack of concentration, isn't it? It's a good header from Clark Carlisle. About time something went Clark's way, you know. It's all been the other way, hasn't it? But he'll be pleased to have got that one in the back. And they'll be disappointed at Ipswich, because they thought it just nosed ahead.
Especially against 10 men.
Yeah, and 4 minutes to go, you expect to see it out.
Yeah, disappointment. Our final Championship roundup now. Watford have had a terrific start to the season in League and Cup, and they were looking to continue their good form as they welcomed a familiar face to the Vic.
There was a warm welcome for an old friend at Vicarage Road. Coventry boss Adi Boothroyd is well regarded round Watford Way after guiding the Hornets into the Premier League and an FA Cup semi-final. Malky Mackay's Watford have started the season with 2 away wins, scoring 6 goals, but at home Marvin Sordell was denied by Michael Quirk, who'd come on as a sub after just 18 minutes. Goalkeepers can lead a funny Jekyll and Hyde existence, though. Having impressed before, Quirk ended up in no man's land here. Will Buckley with the header. Now, John Eustace started his career at Coventry, so the way football is, he was probably worth a cheeky £5 to score against the Sky Blues. He was worth way more than that with the finish he provided. Boothroyd made 10 changes from the young team that got dumped out the Carling Cup by Morecambe during the week. The one player that remained was David Bell. What a way to start the fight back. And it was completed after a very strange refereeing decision. Lloyd Doyley appeared only to stand his ground, but Richard Keogh's fall convinced Trevor Kettle to point to the spot. Lukas Jutkiewicz did the rest, a first goal for the club and a heart-fought point for Adi Boothroyd's Coventry.
We gave ourselves a big mountain to climb. We were particularly poor for an hour. Watford were by far the better team. But thankfully we've got a little bit about us, got a bit of spirit. Didn't have a lot of good play today, with the ball or without the ball, but what we have got is we've got some spirit and we've got some fight back and we've got some good British characteristics, and we got what we deserved in the end, I think.
Crystal Palace arrived at Oakwell hoping to continue their 100% start to the season, but Barnsley have lost both their first 2 games in League and Cup. Manager Mark Robins already pleading for patience after their slow start. That patience was rewarded when Patrick McCarthy inexplicably turned James McEvely's cross into his own net. This was Barnsley's first goal in 3 games. You have to go back to mid-March for the Tykes' last competitive win, and chances were few and far between here. Barnsley reduced to long-range efforts. Kieran Trippier on loan from Manchester City almost extended their advantage. It's been 5 months since Palace last recorded a win on the road, and they never looked like shedding that statistic. Darren Ambrose well off target here. The most worrying incident for Mark Robins came when Goran Lovra was knocked unconscious by an Ambrose free kick. The midfielder was later taken to hospital. The incident only slightly took the edge off a first win of the campaign for Robins and Barnsley's first in 13 league games.
It's nice to start your season with an away win, as Scunthorpe did at Reading last weekend, but it's their home form that manager Nigel Adkins has pinpointed as key to their survival. Not a huge amount to shout about in the first half, but Scunny dominated what action there was. Jonathan Fort denied by John Ruddy. And Chris Dagnall, signed from Rochdale in June, rode his luck as he bore down on goal, but couldn't quite cash in. For the Canaries, it was a familiar trio who were carving out the best chances. Wes Hoolahan, Chris Martin and Grant Holt were key in their run to the League One title last season. This move fluid enough, the finish just lacking. By now, Paul Lambert's side were creating the better chances, the ever-impressive Houlihan dominating midfield, and, but for the intervention of Robert Jones's head, may well have scored the opener. Holt was a goal machine last season, and Norwich fans might have been concerned about him struggling through pre-season because of injury, but he clearly doesn't mind flinging himself about a bit. An emphatic winner in injury time, Norwich are up and running in the Championship.
It's a hard place to come because of the environment and the way Nigel gets on playing. It's a tough place to come, but I'm delighted with the lads, delighted with Fred, and I thought I deserved to win the game.
Preston were the visitors to the Liberty Stadium, where both sets of fans gave a fitting tribute to Bhasin Edrazaj, the Swansea forward who died tragically of a heart attack this summer, aged just 22. Both sides were hoping that convincing Carling Cup wins during the week would set them up for their first league points of the season, but it was Swansea who almost took the lead early on. David Cotterill denied by Andy Lonergan, then the post. On loan at Blackpool last season, Stephen Dobie played his part in the Seasiders' promotion, but Swansea wanted him all for themselves this year, and here's why. And it's no secret Swansea's lack of goals proved their undoing last season. They were the Championship's lowest scorers with just 40, but when Darren Pratley bundled home their second, Brendan Rodgers was well on the way to 3 points in his first home league game in charge. And Swansea put 3 goals past Barnet in the Carling Cup in midweek, and they equalled that tally just 3 minutes later. Dobie again involved, Nathan Dyer punishing a woeful North End defence. Former Chelsea winger and record signing Scott Sinclair should cause Championship defenders a few problems this season, but this time both he and Pratley were foiled by Lonergan's smart double save. But it didn't take them much longer to breach the Preston defence once again. Keith Tracy was no match for Nathan Dyer's direct running. Penalty given. And up steps Steve Cotterill to make it 4, to follow a first international goal for Wales during the week. Preston are without an away win since January, and finishing like this from Tracy tells you why. It just wasn't to be Preston's day. 4 goals in the end for Swansea, something they failed to do in the whole of last season.
Yeah, it was near on perfect in terms of, you know, how we played, you know, with good control and domination of the game, and obviously added the goals to that. So no, the players were magnificent, and I was very proud of them.
Yeah, well under Brendan Rodgers. We heard it from the commentator there as well. Refreshing for Swansea fans to see a performance like that, particularly after, well, not many goals last season.
No, they did it hard way, didn't they? Certainly.
40 in all, I think it was.
Yes, one of the lowest scorers. I mean, obviously having Dobie back, that's why people let players go out on loan to get that, build their confidence up, you know, come back different players, come back better players. He's obviously done that. I mean, they are literally a goal scorer away from being a very decent side at this level, and they can keep defending like they did last year and add that, you know, a little bit of a cutting edge. Who knows? It's a rebuilding effort, not only for Swansea but for Brendan Rodgers, isn't it? Absolutely. After, you know, what happened at Reading, big questions to answer, and you know, this will be, you know, hopefully I would imagine this will be his redemption. Scott Sinclair's come in, hasn't he? Yeah. And like, we've counted up the clubs that he's played for on loan. QPR, Plymouth, Charlton, Palace, Birmingham, Wigan. Yeah. In 3 years. It's about time he stayed put somewhere. Yeah, a little bit like James Henry. You start to wonder then about players, you know, that know that none of those clubs have actually taken him from his parent club. So obviously question marks about him to be answered, but no, 1 or 2 little excerpts there. It shows just how capable he is. And he did burst upon the scene very early in his career. I remember fantastic goals at Plymouth, fantastic goals at QPR. Now he has to show that, you know, he's got, with that experience, with that ability, allied with a bit of experience, that we're going to get a more, shall we say, a more wholesome player. Now Norwich won the League One title pretty emphatically down to their fitness and late goals. Another late goal today. This was one for the camera. Well, it was a great effort. You've encapsulated the game, haven't you? The fitness of Grant Holt. And, towards the very end. This is a brilliant header. Look at this. Look at the direction. Arcs the ball round the keeper. Hasn't got an awful lot to aim for there, and it's a fantastic finish. A little bit to prove at this level, Grant, because when he was at Forest, couldn't hold his position up front, got shoved out wide. Things didn't work for him. But he's shown there that hopefully he can be very effective. OK, well, I should think we've been getting more and more emails and texts from Millwall fans. Lizzie, is that really the case?
It is. They just get tens and tens and tens of them every week. Let's go here.
Phil says, I just want to say how good it is to be a Millwall fan at the moment. And the whole fans, though, aren't worried. Robbie says, I'd rather lose badly now when we have the time to sort out the problems. But let's talk a little bit about Kevin Blackwell, because as you can imagine, I've had hundreds of emails and texts about this. Mostly, I have to say, for the decision to remove Kevin Blackwell. Paul says it was inevitable he was going to bite the dust. Can't build a team around lone players. Matt says, now we might actually do something. Spider said negative tactics, average signings, and always blaming the fans. Time for the Blaze to move forward. Dave has a message to the chairman. He says, please make the right decision and get the right man for the job, not just a yes man. But quite a few of you think it's the wrong decision. Ryan, Chris and Jack are absolutely livid. They say people forget the good times of the Wembley playoff final when we came close to Premier League. Blackwell will be missed. Joe says he's done wonders for Sheffield United and should never have been sacked. Maradona next. I can't believe you really want Maradona. But who will be next? Well, you talked about it a little bit earlier. Gary Speed, one of the names. Chris says it's going to be Joe Kinnear. And Ryan says Phil Brown will be our new manager before next weekend's game. You heard it here first. More goals from QPR. What it must be like to be a QPR fan. Richard says, at last, a QPR team with fire in their bellies. This could be the year we return to the promised land. Plenty of happy Cardiff fans. And I've got an update on the defender Kevin McNaughton, who clashed heads. I think you heard it in the report there. He's been released from hospital and is well enough to travel on the team bus. Swansea fans are on the warpath. I've got to mention them, if otherwise I'll get killed. The Blobster says, are you going to ever say anything positive about Swansea City this season? Fabulous result today. Great football. Much more positive. And finally, quickly, this is for you, Steve. Question on Middlesbrough. Lots of questions about Middlesbrough, which is why I'm going to pick them. Jordan says, the favourites for promotion, awesome on paper, where are we going wrong? And John says, does this show how weak the SPL is?
No, I mean, when Gordon Strachan went in there, it has to be remembered they were only a point off of the top, and he decided that that team wasn't for him. He said at the start of the season, look, I've watched this team too many times and thought, right in the first 5 minutes, we're not going to win this game, we haven't got the players who can change it. He's now done that. There are no excuses. You know, there are expectations that come with the money that he's spent. He's got some decent players down from Scotland. I don't know. Are there questions still to be asked? You would probably say so far this season, but that's not to say. Let's judge. Let's wait a little bit and let's judge. A little bit further down the line, I think.
Well, he said they didn't pass it quite as well as he would have liked.
He's never going to.
So that's a gelling thing,
of course, he's never going to kid you. I mean, this will take a little bit of time to bed in because it's been a constant process of change there ever since he's been to the club. But he knows that the pressure will be on right from the very start, and it's how they respond. But let's give them time to, as you say, show exactly what they can.
When the transfer window closes at the end of August, it might do him a favour. Now, the tragic deaths this week of Adam Stansfield and Marcus Lieber meant that Exeter's game against Dagenham and Redbridge and Southampton's match with MK Dons were postponed. As a mark of respect, that left 10 games this weekend in League One. We begin with Peterborough's trip to Bournemouth.
After away defeats in League and Cup to Charlton and Southampton, Bournemouth were delighted to be back on home soil. Liam Feeney's fine cross set up Mark Pugh's first goal for the club, with the Cherries showing every sign they can continue to be a real force on their own turf, just as they were in League Two last season. With only 20 minutes on the clock, they doubled their advantage. Midfielder Anton Robinson proving that a summer spent working on his finishing was well worth the effort. A shock for Peterborough after big back-to-back wins in their first week. This time their afternoon just got worse and worse. 5 minutes into the second half, any prospect of a comeback was crushed by Brett Pittman. Posh knew all about the striker. Back in December they'd tried to tempt the cash-strapped South Coast club to sell him. But Bournemouth stood firm against their advances, unlike Peterborough's defence, with Charlie Lee hassled into a disastrous back pass that handed Pittman his second of the game. 4 minutes later, Gary Johnson's men conjured up the only enjoyable moment of their afternoon. A scruffy goal claimed by Calvin Langmead, though his teammates' desperation to get the ball back to the halfway line looked a shade optimistic with the scoreline still at 4-1. More than half an hour to go, though. Plenty of time for Pittman to make sure of the match ball. His hat-trick was achieved in the space of 15 minutes, and this goal showed his right foot's just as dangerous as the left. How Peterborough must wish now that they could have prized him away from Dean Court.
Two teams at opposite ends of the financial spectrum, but free-spending Huddersfield failed to make a deposit against cash-strapped Tranmere. Scott Arfield inches away from opening his League One account. Normally a home banker, Huddersfield even went into the red when Gary Naismith picked up a second yellow after tangling with Joss Labadie. Terriers boss Lee Clark honest enough to give Tranmere lots of credit.
I thought we were quite average, to be honest with you. Tempo of the game wasn't up to what we expect, and Tranmere come and done a good job. And So as you say, one positive is a clean sheet, but not at all pleased with our performance.
Dumped from the Cup in midweek, these two were looking to build on winning starts to their league campaign. This is Carlisle's longest journey of the season, but the 800-mile round trip suddenly seemed worthwhile as Ian Hart headed them into a 68th-minute lead. But 4 minutes into time added on, the Cumbrians had victory snatched from right under their noses. Rory Patterson's looking to make a name for himself in English football after spending most of his career in non-league, and this is not a bad way to start. The Irishman's first goal for the Pilgrims, meaning the points were shared.
Sheffield Wednesday seemed to be coping with the pressure of being among the pre-season promotion favourites, but had to settle for a point at Colchester, although luck wasn't on their side as Gary Teale crossed for Clinton Morrison, who was denied only by the keeper Mark Cousins, the base of the post, and some desperate defending. A host of league clubs were said to be interested in Barrow's Andy Bond this off-season, and when Colchester boss John Ward made him his first signing, he said he was delighted to get him. 5 minutes into the second half, it wasn't hard to see why. First time with the outside of the boot, an impressive way to mark your home debut. The Essex side could have wrapped it up soon after that. On loan Reading man David Mooney, scorer of a pair in the midweek Carling Cup win over Hereford, unlucky from long range. But Wednesday levelled 7 minutes from time thanks to substitute Neil Mellor. On a season-long loan from Preston, maybe even his gaffer Alan Irvine didn't realise Mellor was this good at keepy-uppy. 3 touches and smashed into the back of the net. The result probably just about right.
I thought that Colchester started the second half better, and obviously they got the goal at that point. And then I thought that we gradually got more and more into it again, and we had them in the back foot really for the last part of the game. Probably a fair result in reflection.
Well, Neil Mellor rescuing a point, but a terrific goal from Colchester's Andy Bond. Result of that roundup, I suppose, well, there's no argument about it. Bournemouth's win over Peterborough. They've had a tough start to the season. They played, Charlton, Southampton, both away. And then to hit Peterborough for 5, which is unlike a Gary Johnson side.
It is. I mean, you expect Peterborough to go very close this year. The chairman there seems to have got his enthusiasm back. I think he wants 100 goals and 100 points.
Yeah, slightly ambitious.
I know he said against it, 4 against it. I'm not quite sure after today. Brilliant from Bournemouth. Eddie Howe's got 7 signings in. They all look as if they've...
but he's kept this on that counts.
Yes, that was the big one, wasn't it? Sometimes it's more important who you keep than who you sign. And obviously Brett Pittman, 29 goals last year, is a massive player for them. Step up again. We're going to, obviously going to ask whether he can play at this level or not.
But he has done it before for Bournemouth.
Well, not at that level, I don't think.
I think okay.
He might have had a season up there, but he obviously not like it. He was so prolific last year for them.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a fantastic finisher. We saw that last year.
3 great different finishing.
Yeah, all different. I mean, I played with Brett, when I was there. I was only there for a month. And as I said, he has undoubted ability, and now he seems to have got, the attitude and the application with it. And I think he's, he looks like he's just going to carry that form all the way through, and it'll be great. Some people question whether Eddie Howe would stay. Looks like it's the right decision now.
It certainly is. More from League One now, and the All-London affair that took place on Friday night between Leyton Orient and Charlton. Well, the O's had a terrific cup win in midweek against Swindon. Scott McGleish was rested for that match, but the striker was brought back into the starting lineup against Charlton. As for the visitors, well, they conceded 4 to Shrewsbury in midweek. Their defence was shored up by the experienced pair of Christian Daly and Gary Doherty. Commentary on this one comes from Paul Walker.
Ravel looking at the options, away by Jackson. Orient pushing on here, now Dawson the captain. It's a surging run from Dawson, decent effort, beaten away by Jamie Jones. Well, Dawson looking to go himself here, decent drive. And Phil Parkinson knows that was close. Charlton have it with Francis. McCormack at the far post, McCormack! Charlton ahead. Alan McCormack scoring against his former club. Francis's cross, and McCormack picked out the corner. His first goal in Charlton colours. Phil Parkinson's men have the edge. Orient coming forward. Here's Chambers. Daly gets in the way. And what's the referee going to give here? Was there an arm involved? There was. And Orient will get a free kick and Daly gets a yellow card. Spring could be the taker of this free kick. Well, the wall does its job, but it's not cleared yet. And Omasuzi, and a good block from McCormack, keeps Leyton Orient out. Spring with a vicious free kick, but Charlton survive. Given away by Soji. Now Cox. Good ball in, McLeish over at the far post, it's all square. Scott McLeish levels things up here. Now in his fourth spell at Leyton Orient, McLeish drags them level. Good ball in from Cox, and McLeish could make no mistake. Russell Slade's men back in it. Oh dear, Daly could be in trouble here. Booked already in the first half, and a clash with Stephen Dawson means that Daly sees red for the second time in his career. Nowhere near the ball. Charlton down to 10 men. Things could get a little bit tricky now. Possibilities here. Martin, that's a lovely flick, and Wagstaff's in here for Charlton, and he scored. Charlton back ahead. Scott Wagstaff, the 20-year-old who's been at the club since 8 years old, and Charlton retake the lead. Beautiful finish. Daly now with a watching brief. Orient pushing for another equaliser. Ball lofted in, cleared by the keeper. Now Dawson, now appeals for a penalty. McCormack made the block. He's come off worse for wear, and Orient here feel they should have a penalty. Well, nothing much really McCormack could do to get out of the way, despite Dawson's protests. Stoppage time. Wagstaff has got in here, he's got Solly making a run for him in the middle. Solly! Victory sealed for Charlton. Incredible stuff here. Solly just on as a substitute, and with his very first touch, makes sure of the points, and Charlton are storming to the top of the league.
Great win for us, backs to the wall at times, obviously with 10 men, but I thought the spirit in the squad was absolutely first class, and if the spirit's right in the team and the squad, that can carry you a long way throughout the course of the season, and the signs I'm seeing at the moment, the spirit is good and the lads are fighting for each other, and you've got to have that.
Work in progress, I would say, for sure. We have to get better, we will get better. I've said that, I've gone on record saying that, and you know, these are one of the top sides. They were in the playoffs, as you know, last season, so it was a good yardstick for us today, and I thought you saw, even when they had 11 players on the pitch, that we were more than matching them.
Yeah, it's a tough campaign. It could well be for Leyton Orient and Russell Slade. And just like last year, Charlton have begun the season well. On to the rest of the action now from League One. We start our roundup with Brighton, who welcomed Keith Hill's Rochdale.
Brighton hope to build on their excellent opening day win at Swindon, and Glenn Murray marked his first appearance of the season with a goal against his former club. Murray, like new signing Gordon Greer, was suspended last week. The defender's Albion debut didn't go so well. An off-camera clash with Anthony Owding saw the Seagulls' new skipper dismissed, just as he was in his last match for Swindon. A bizarre turn of events for a player who before that hadn't been sent off for more than 9 years. Amid the mayhem, Gary Jones kept his cool. Brighton protested the penalty shouldn't have been given, believing the ball was dead when Greer tangled with Owding. Elliot Bennett's superb strike should have made the arguments immaterial. But poor home form was Brighton's Achilles heel last season. Even a man down, they threatened to stretch the lead. Murray's tidy 1-2 with Ashley Barnes meant Josh Lillis had to be sharp. And that save made all the difference for Rochdale, who finished strongly, preserving their unbeaten record since promotion deep into stoppage time. Kasper Ankergren inexplicably opted to punch, and the quick-thinking Jones punished the mistake to leave Brighton boss Gus Poyet fuming.
I think everybody would agree that we deserve to win. even with 10, I think everybody will agree that if you make mistakes and you give goals away so cheaply, you're going to lose. And it's on top of that, you got the referee who doesn't have a clue if the ball is in play or not. You put all together, and it's very simple, choo-choo.
Oldham are certainly responding well to new manager Paul Dickoff. They're finally scoring some goals, although the early signs against Notts County weren't too promising. Umare Tunkara, the man fluffing his lines. But the goals started flowing on 31 minutes. Dickoff said Dean Furman couldn't hit the target during practice this week. The South African was obviously saving it up for when it mattered. His first as a Latic, well worth the wait. Having missed that earlier sitter, Tunkara then made a difficult chance look simple. A first goal in English football for the young Frenchman on loan from Sunderland. You had to go back 64 competitive matches to February 2009 for the last time Oldham hit 3, but the Latics matched that when Kieran Lee put away his first since last August, 3 minutes from time. Maybe this is what happens when you put one of the game's great goal poachers in charge of things. Dickoff's Oldham are the pleasant surprise of League One.
It's been a bad start to the season for Paul Trollope's Bristol Rovers. Last week's 3-0 defeat at Peterborough was followed by Tuesday's 6-1 humiliation against Oxford. So the Rovers boss wanted a reaction against West Country rivals Yeovil. Last season's leading scorer Joe Kuffour gave them the kickstart they needed. And the odds looked increasingly stacked in their favour when Yeovil were reduced to 10 men with less than 10 minutes to go. John Paul Kalala dismissed for a clumsy challenge on Stuart Campbell. The Congolese midfielder has now seen red in each of the last 3 seasons. The Glovers, winners against Leyton Orient a week ago, appeared to have snatched a deserved point when Adam Virgo volleyed home with just a minute left on the clock. But Rovers kept their foot on the gas and sealed the points in the last minute of injury time when Byron Anthony rifled home. Just a tonic after a miserable week for the manager.
We wanted to bounce back, obviously, after the opening day defeat and then the game at Oxford on Tuesday, and we did that, and the win was the most important thing. The manner of it was the least important, but I was very, very proud of the players, the effort, the commitment, and the desire that they showed.
Brentford finished last season unbeaten in 17 home league games. This campaign, that record's already tumbled. Alex Nichols giving Walsall an excellent start at Griffin Park. As you'd expect, Brentford came back strongly, and virtually on the stroke of half-time, Gary Alexander scored his first for the club. The striker delighted to be back in business after spending most of last season on the sidelines at Millwall. The Bees' renewed optimism at the break only survived the first 9 minutes of the second half. A slick move from Walsall, topped off as Darren Byfield cleverly picked out Julian Gray to restore the Saddlers' lead. But the result remained far from a foregone conclusion. Brentford kept their opponents busy in the closing stages. John Brain somehow flicked Craig Woodman's free kick past the post to give Walsall their first points of the campaign and leave the Bees still to get off the mark.
OK, it's a cliché, but it really was a game of 2 halves at the Victoria Ground. All Hartlepool in the opening 45 minutes. Tony Sweeney setting up Adam Boyd for the opener after 4 minutes. His second goal in as many matches. And it was Sweeney himself on the scoreboard shortly afterwards, punishing a lapse in the Swindon defence with a superbly placed lob. It didn't look like a happy return to the northeast for former Pools boss Danny Wilson, but the Robins manager made a double substitution in the second half, and one of the new boys, Thomas Dosavi, gave the visitors a lifeline, his first goal in English football. 2 minutes later, the other sub, Vincent Perricard, inadvertently set up Charlie Austin, and last season's 20-goal scorer did what he does best. Hartlepool now hanging on, hopefully for a point. Even that looked to be beyond them as a rampant Austin almost found an unlikely winner. A first point of the season for Swindon, and so nearly Hartlepool's first defeat.
Yeah, good comeback there from Swindon. Disappointing, no doubt, for Hartlepool. We've just been arguing the toss here, haven't we, about a controversy in the Brighton game involving Rochdale. Gus Poyet, the Brighton boss, is fuming. He says this shouldn't have happened because the ball wasn't active when there was an infringement in the box. Steve, clear this one up for us, because this was a penalty. The referee gave this as a penalty.
Yeah, well, what's happened is, I had this at Weymouth, OK, and we didn't know at the time, but I had Mark Kenway had elbowed someone, and the referee gave a penalty. Now, what basically happens is the referee blows. The game is then active. He doesn't have to take the free kick. The game is active. If you stood there for 5 minutes and didn't take it, you get booked for time wasting.
So it's not active when he kicks the ball?
No, it doesn't. You don't have to wait for it. As soon as he blows his whistle and says, right, take the free kick, the game then becomes active.
Okay.
So what happens then, if infringement happens,
in the box,
then you react accordingly. If he hasn't blown his whistle and the game, then he doesn't make the game active, you can't. That would just be a sending off, but it wouldn't be a penalty.
Yeah.
Because the game is active, the game then obviously goes on, and whatever happens, he can then act accordingly, and that's what he's done.
And I think Gus Poyet's complaint is, and I've got the quote here, the referee didn't have a clue if the ball was in play or not. I asked the linesman and he didn't know either.
It didn't need to be in play. As long as he made the game active, then the game starts.
Yeah, OK. We must mention what would have been, what was, at the end of the day, a key win for Bristol Rovers against Yeovil. And Paul Dickoff's management career has gone off to a flyer, 2 league wins out of 2. So Oldham fans, no doubt, will have got in touch with Lizzie. Or is that the case?
It is actually. In fact, I was going to say, I've never ever heard from so many Oldham fans. Usually I have about 2 a week, but we've had loads. Paul says, just to say, Paul Dickoff, keep up the good work and we'll be in the Championship next season. Oliver says, absolutely ecstatic after today's win. This is the most excited I've ever been about a season. But a word of warning from Danny. He says, Dickoff has got Oldham off to a belting start, but how many times have we been good in our first 6 games and then flumped it? I'm not sure about the word flumped, but anyway, I think you see what I mean. Let's talk about Leyton, Orient, Charlton. This is anonymous, but somebody says, Charlton did amazing yesterday, but we need to work on our celebrations. We just bundled into the corner. You were talking about the Rochdale-Brighton thing. Well, Liz, Steve and Sarah all got in touch about that, and we were obviously going to talk about it, and you've done that, so you've kind of covered it. Simon, Jack, Matty and Big Ears, all from Rochdale, lots of Rochdale fans. They said an average performance by Rochdale today at Brighton. We still have a 100% unbeaten record in League One. George, who's a Rochdale fan, says it was amusing to be singing We Are Staying Up so early in the season. Now, we talked about lots of Oldham fans. There have been clearly lots of Exeter City fans who've been getting in touch to talk about Adam Stansfield. Rich, the Grecian, says Stanu was truly a great role model. Matt says he was one of the good guys. He always gave 100%. Now, let's move on to Bournemouth with their 5-1 win over Peterborough. Lots of talk about Mark Pugh. Alex says, I've got to be honest, I hadn't even heard of him before Bournemouth got him. Cherries will be in the Championship in no time. And finally, a quick question for Steve. Scott says he's a Sheffield Wednesday fan. Who has the best squad in League One? I'm just going to throw that to you, Steve.
Yeah, you would have to say probably at this stage Southampton, but Sheffield Wednesday have got 1 or 2 players that have come to the club. You know, Clinton Morrison for one, that I think will do a good job at that level. So
Aaron Pearce, they've got some.
Yeah, no, I mean Pearce has already been there, so
yeah.
you know there's 1 or 2 that you think will do a good job. And to be fair, with the size and the scale of both those clubs, although every game will be difficult, you would expect them to both be up there.
All right. On to League Two now, and arguably the result of the week in the Carling Cup came from Port Vale, who put 3 past Queen's Park Rangers at Loftus Road. Well, Mickey Adams' team were back in league action on Saturday at home to Chesterfield.
Last time these two met, Vale put 5 past Chesterfield. Manager Mickey Adams warned not to expect a repeat, but they were certainly quick off the mark, literally. Mark Richards, who'd scored a hat-trick in that 5-0 thrashing back in March, with his first goal of the new season. There's quite a battle to be the highest scoring Richards at Vale Park this year. With Justin getting a pair in the midweek Carling Cup win over QPR, Mark has some catching up to do. Only the crossbar denied him a second. Then it was the other Richards' turn to be denied. Former Cheltenham man Justin thwarted by the combination of post and the knee of keeper Tommy Lee. The hosts were in complete control, but failure to build on their slender advantage cost them dear with 11 minutes remaining. Not the prettiest goal you'll ever see, but that's 3 in as many matches for Dwayne Mattis, who only managed 2 the whole of last season. A point apiece then, relief for Chesterfield. Vale still unbeaten, but probably thinking this could have been a little bit better.
The close season did nothing to break Torquay's stride. Kevin Nicholson's free kick found Elliot Benham flying full length to head them in front at Lincoln. And if the Devon club takes the lead, its opponents have a serious problem. The last league goal Paul Buckle's side conceded was back in April, a run of 8 matches. Lincoln's Andrew Hutchison did have them on the back foot, but couldn't keep his composure at the crucial moments. So another clean sheet in store for Torquay, who wrapped up victory with a neat move. Jan and O'Kane set Chris Zabrowski free, and in the centre, City made the big mistake of leaving Benyon unmarked. 2 league wins out of 2 for Torquay, and a pair of defeats for Lincoln.
Graham Turner's enjoying life back at Shrewsbury. An opening day win followed by a Carling Cup comeback against Charlton, and then an early boost at Moss Rose. Matt Sadler creating the chance for midweek hero Matt Harrold to open the scoring on 3 minutes. The clearer opportunities in the second half also went the visitors' way. Benjamin van den Broek letting fly, the crossbar coming to the rescue of Jose Vega. Macclesfield, denied victory by Stevenage's late equaliser last week, almost snatched one themselves, but Hamza Ben Sharif was denied by Daniel O'Donnell's goal line clearance.
Following a 5-0 mauling in the League Cup midweek, Stockport needed a win to boost confidence at Edgeley Park. And on-loan striker George Donnelly nearly gave County the win they sought, but he was denied by Nicky Bull in the Wickham goal. The Bulls' opposite number, Owen Fon-Williams, was the architect of the last decent effort. His long punt forward was flicked on by Barry Conlon, but David Poole failed to keep his volley down.
A rare Saturday off for World Cup final referee Howard Webb. Luckily, there were no angry Dutchmen around Morecambe's new Globe Arena, and no goals either, although Rotherham's Adam Lafondra couldn't have been much closer with an effort which deserved better. The Shrimps were hoping for 3 points in their league debut at their new stadium. It never really looked like happening despite the best efforts of Adam Rundle. But with only 1 yellow card, an easy afternoon for the ref too.
Simon Davey got a warm welcome for his first home league game in charge of Hereford. Clearly the fans not too perturbed by the midweek cup defeat against Colchester, though Gillingham soon caused some concern, continuing their quest for that elusive away win, having gone the whole of last season without one. Adam Bartlett on his toes to keep Chris Palmer at bay, and when the same Gills player did get the better of the keeper, the post came to Hereford's rescue. So for a change, the Bulls shared the points as the match stayed goalless. James McQuilkin went close to separating the sides, but this was Hereford's first draw in 25 league outings.
Yeah, goalless draw there. In fact, there weren't a huge amount of goals in League Two on Saturday afternoon, but there were goals crucially at Sincil Bank, 2 for Torquay, a club record 9 without conceding a goal. It's all clicking into place for Paul Buckle.
It is. I mean, it went up last year. Gave the opportunity, the lads who took him up, an opportunity, got to about halfway through the season,
and
decided,
then he changed it around.
Well, we're going to go young. Yeah, got a few out. Changed it around a little bit, brought some players in, some loanees from clubs, higher clubs, and went young, and it's born to fruition. They're starting to actually play. Looks a good side. You know, it's a fantastic achievement to get them top. They're not conceding goals, and they've got someone in Elliot Benyon who's got, I think, 7 in his last 8. So, you know, when you're not conceding, you've got a goal scorer. Yeah. It's a potent mix.
As for Lincoln, 3 defeats in a row.
Yeah.
It's not looking brilliant for them, is it?
Well, those heady days of, what was it, 5 out of 6 playoffs, and you know, seem to be a long way away
under
now,
Keith
don't
Alexander.
they? Yeah, under Keith, and yes, it looks like it's going to be another tough season. I think our expectations were they do better than they did last year, but that doesn't look like it's going to be a case this year either. So yeah, I think things will have to improve there, certainly.
Yeah, tough season ahead for Chris Sutton, that's for sure. More from League Two now, and after hitting Bristol Rovers for 6 in midweek, Oxford United really announced their return to the Football League, and they were looking to build on that big win in their game against Bury.
Fresh from battering Bristol Rovers 6-1 in the League Cup, Oxford were full of optimism, only for Tom Lees to provide an early reality check. Bury threatening to spoil Oxford's first home league match since returning to the 4th tier. United, though, were quickly back on terms. Jack Midson seemed lucky to get away with his challenge on the keeper, but play continued and Midson eventually reaped the benefit, waiting patiently for the chance to tuck away the equaliser. After their draw at Burton Albion on the opening day, Oxford at the very least were hopeful of staying unbeaten. But Bury's top scorer last season came up trumps with just 11 minutes left. Ryan Lowe clinching victory for the Shakers.
Promotion favourites Bradford are up and running, but this was far from convincing, with Bantam's boss Peter Taylor conceding afterwards that Stevenage were the better side. The game was decided by a penalty. Joey Byram upended Lee Bullock, And up stepped Gareth Evans to put away the spot kick and condemn Stevenage to their first defeat in the Football League.
Nicknamed the Cobblers in reference to the local area's long-standing association with the shoemaking industry, Northampton Town were founded in 1897. A decade later, they gave a first managerial role to the legendary Herbert Chapman, who went on to win the league with both Huddersfield and Arsenal. In the 1960s, Northampton created an unwanted Football League record, going from the bottom to the top tier of English football, and back down to the bottom again in just 9 years. Woo. They moved here to Sixfields from their dilapidated county ground in 1994 at the end of a season in which they'd finished bottom of the Football League but avoided relegation because conference champions Kidderminster's ground wasn't up to league standards. During the last decade, they were subject to a takeover bid from Giovanni Di Stefano, one of Saddam Hussein's legal defence team. In 1970, Manchester United's George Best banged 6 goals past them in an 8-2 FA Cup home thrashing. Entertainer Des O'Connor played for the club's reserves just after World War II. And during their early years, their star man was Walter Tull, the first black outfield player in English League football. He went on to become the British Army's first black officer and was killed in 1918 in the Second Battle of the Somme. This is the club's memorial to him.
Last season, Northampton beat Accrington 4-0 at Sixfields, with striker Billy Mackay getting 2. And the same man almost opened the scoring with this curling effort that was clawed away by Ian Dunbavin in the Accrington goal. And the Northern Ireland under-21 international should really have secured all 3 points late on after being teed up by Ryan Gilligan, but he again failed to convert, meaning the points were shared.
Cheltenham's flowing football is certainly catching the eye, and with Crewe having a similar attacking philosophy, this one always promised entertainment, and the fun started inside 4 minutes. Patrick Adar, a Cameroonian whose only previous senior goal came at non-league St Albans City, with an outstanding finish. Still in search of their first win of the season, the Robins were creating plenty of chances, and midway through the first half they were deservedly level. Wesley Thomas on the mark again, just as he was last week at Gillingham. The man acquired in the off-season from Dagenham and Redbridge looks a shrewd signing. Just before the interval, Thomas was at it again. Cheltenham shredding Crewe's defences and exposing on-loan Chelsea keeper Reece Taylor, who was probably wishing he was back at Stamford Bridge, as Thomas took his tally for the season to 3. But 4 minutes after the break, Crewe were back on level terms. A teasing free kick from Ashley Westwood and Calvin Zola on hand to make it 2 apiece. But just past the hour, Thomas turned provider for his strike partner Jeff Goulding, another new arrival, and he notched his first goal since joining from Bournemouth. Under manager Mark Yates, the Robins will certainly be fun to watch.
Southend always feared their energy-sapping extra-time win over Bristol City in the Cup could have a bearing on this match, though Louis Soares was certainly fired up to face his former club and not far from giving the Essex team the lead. But 9 minutes from the end, Aldershot was still full of running as Marvin Morgan stretched the Southend defence. Keeper Glenn Morris defied Damien Spencer, but as the ball broke free, Morgan finished the job he'd started, and that was enough for the shots.
Burton keeper Adam Legstins was the star on a frustrating afternoon for Barnet, who'd lost their opening 2 matches. The former Crewe stopper made a string of fine saves, including this one from Mark Byrne. Burton are yet to open their account in the league this season. Even the usually reliable Sean Harrod failed to hit the target. And just like the weather, this was a bit of a washout.
Yeah, well, at least it puts an end to Barnet's losing run this season. But 3 goals for Cheltenham. I think they're talking about it quietly over at Cheltenham, but Mark Yates brought in 10 players and 2 loans. He's certainly putting his own stamp on that.
Yeah, I saw an interview he gave in the paper the other day, and he said he wants, you know, a little bit more football played. He's going, young. He's going for a youthful, enthusiastic sort of side. And Wesley Thomas just about sums everything up. 3 in 26 for Dagenham last year. 3 in 2 this year. So it just sometimes, you know,
change of club, change of fortune.
Absolutely, doesn't do you any harm.
Yeah.
Well, I should know.
Yeah, indeed. You should know, yeah. OK, let's hear from Lizzie then. And I should think Cheltenham fans will be getting in touch on the emails and texts. Lizzie, over to you.
Yeah, plenty actually. Pat says it's a long time since I've been so proud to be a Cheltenham fan. Sam says I might just have to dub us the Arsenal of League Two. But 2 defeats for crew mean Dario Gradi once again, like last season's, coming under some stick. Dan says started how we finished last season, inept defending, poor tactically, the only way is down. Lots of Bradford fans as well. Gaz says 3 points for us, and we're still some fans are booing the team. Bradford's performance wasn't the best, but Stephen drew a very good team. But Tom and Dave, who are Bradford fans, says we saw a crisp packet blowing up and down our wing, which had more width and ideas than we had. Come on, Peter Taylor, we need more invention. More calls from Gillingham to buy another striker, just like last week. Andy says we need one more striker to get us back up into League One. The Accrington Alsatian says enjoying this season despite being stuck at the wrong end. John Coleman will turn it around. Bury fans been busy tonight. Damien says we had some great young players and we will be a force this season. Christian, a Port Vale fan, lots of Port Vale fans who think they should have been 3-1 up, 3-0 up at half-time. Says first half we played like Brazil, second half we were more like Stoke, and he says that's not good, by the way. Lots of Torquay fans enjoying being top of the league. And finally, I don't know whether you remember, but last week a Lincoln City fan called Kevin asked Katie to marry him, and the answer from Katie is yes.
Well, that's a relief.
Yeah, good luck to her.
Yeah, indeed. Right, let's take a look at the early runners and riders then, albeit after a week of the season. Starting with N-Power League 2, Torquay and Shrewsbury maintain their 100% starts to the season after away wins over Lincoln and Macclesfield, respectively. There are 7 other sides that are unbeaten after the first 2 games. At the bottom, it's Lincoln and Crewe, who are yet to pick up a point. It's early days, but that'll be of little comfort to the likes of Chris Sutton and Dario Gradi. In League 1, Oldham and Charlton are the only sides to win 2 from 2. One of those 100% records, incidentally, will go next weekend. Those 2 meet at the Valley. There are still 5 sides in the bottom half without a win, yet although Southampton and Dagenham and Redbridge have only played 1 game this season after their games on Saturday were postponed. Perhaps not even the most optimistic Millwall fan would have expected to see their team at the top of the table this season, but after their impressive 4-0 win against Hull, that's exactly where they find themselves. QPR are the only other side to win their opening 2 games. Down at the bottom, Preston will be feeling sorry for themselves after 2 defeats from 2. Forest and Leeds didn't play. They meet at the City Ground on Sunday afternoon. And a reminder, you can catch us on the red button till midday. We're on Freeview until 8 in the morning, and we're on the iPlayer all week. And of course, you can catch all of the action through the week on the BBC Sport website. And we're back next week at the same time, 10 to midnight. I wonder how many more Football League managers will have gone by then. Well, that's it for tonight. Thanks as always to Lizzie and Steve. Have a great week. Good night.